Good call. That was good. Favorite? We all have favorite possessions. There you go. I like that, the Bible. Would you give anything for that? Would you take anything for that? You'd have to. And we're that times a trillion. That's how important we are to Jesus. We're not just something, oh man, yeah, I got this drawer full of junk I don't know what to do with. Every once in a while I go through and clean out stuff in my garage and think, why did I keep that? I'm going to throw it. No, I better keep it. Why did I keep that? I'm not a hoarder. I'm just prepared. We're not, oh, there you go. Amen, brother. We're not some spare, mismatched plate with a crack in it, folks. We are his prized possession. We read that we're written on the palm of God's hand. That's pretty cool. Every time he looks at his hand, he sees you. He sees me. So, all of these things he created. He created you. He created the angels. He values everything. He has a special place for us. In the beginning, what things he created? He created heaven, he created earth, he created men, he created angels, and he owns everything. Verse 17. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Okay, he is eternal, and he is active in holding the universe together. And this is where I Googled that, what holds everything together. And I know Sally's done a lot of research on it. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, it's sound waves. Okay? Basically, it's sound waves. Everything is held together by sound waves. Whose voice was that? And God said, let there be. And those sound waves are still going. We know that sound waves, once they leave your mouth, they never stop. They're just way, 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 way far away. God's own voice is what holds everything together. Christ at creation saying, let there be, is what holds everything together. Now that's kind of cool. I know that there are times I like to make stuff and just walk away from it and never have to go back again. But those things that you really, really, really care about, you're constantly looking at them. You're constantly adjusting. You're constantly grooming and doing all this stuff. And that's how Jesus feels about us. We weren't to create it and just let it go and forget about it. He holds creation together. Verse 18. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have supremacy. So now he's talked about natural creation. He's talked about nature. He's talked about heavens. He's talked about earth. He's talked about all the things that he's created. And now he goes on and he talks about this thing called the church. You, me, the bride of Christ. His bride. Now, I remember the day Sally and I got married. It was a Saturday. August the 4th, 1984. We got married at Forest Hills Baptist Church. I don't really remember what time the wedding was. I do know it was dark when we left there. It was at 7, thank you. We got done, and our pastor and friend, he was going to take us in his car to our honeymoon destination. So Sally and I came in, and I'd already checked in, I think, but we got to go in, and I'm in my tuxedo, and Sally's in her wedding dress, and, bird seed and stuff are still falling out of both of our hair and all this other stuff. And we get on the elevator, and as we get on the elevator, there's two guys who obviously had nothing better to do than drink most of the evening. And the one guy said to the other guy, "Hey, I think I'd like to give the bride a kiss." And the other guy said, "I don't know if I'd do that. The groom looks kind of serious." Our groom is kind of serious about us. He loves us. He defends us. He will stand up and he will fight for us. He doesn't say, take care of it yourself. Good luck. He loves us. Men, I know there's been several times in my life where I've heard my kids really, man, Dad, really. And one of the times, I don't remember which kid it was. I don't know if it was, I don't even know. One of them will tell me later. But something happened. A dog was coming after him or something. And I I just went into attack dad mode, you know. And they talked about that for, you know, man, when Dad did that, did you see what happened? Jesus does that for you all the time. A lot of times you don't even know. We don't even know the times that he has stood up and he has smacked something down that never made it to us. Because that's how much he loves us. So he is the head of the body, the church, the bride. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead. Now here we can say he's the firstborn, and it is actually talking about the fact that he is the first fruit. Remember, the seed has to die. It has to be buried for new life to come on. You leave a seed hanging on a tree, guess what? It'll never bear any fruit. It has to die, it has to be buried, and then life comes out of it. And that's what Jesus is for us. Because of what he did on the cross, because of his resurrection, we can have life as the church and as individuals, so that everything he might have, in everything he might have the supremacy. So, verses 19 and 20. For God was pleased to have all his fulfillment dwell in him. God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, Christ, and through him to be reconciled to himself all things. God said, not everything is reconciled to me, but through Christ, his death, his burial, his resurrection, all things will be reconciled to me, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Jesus is God in flesh. Everything that we said of God the Father last week is true of God the Son this week, and there's more. As you think about it, I just want to ask you guys, this is a participation time. What about Jesus impresses you? What Sarah offered and invited you during worship to just, what has Jesus been to you this week? Because Jesus isn't just one thing. He's many things. And was he a healer to you this week? Was he a provider to you this week? Was he a friend to you this week? Was he a groom to you this week? Was he a master to you this week? Was he a brother to you this week? I had a great time. Brian Clifton and I, we got to go over to the Broadway's house Thursday and Friday and do a little bit of stuff over there for him. And I'm sure Brian will never be the same because, you know, he got to see a side of me. Well, y'all see it all the time too. But you know, I just think about, we had a good time together. And every once in a while, we would pick on each other. And, you know, I would give him my fatherly instruction because I'm much older than he is. But you know, we had a good time together. And I encouraged him and he encouraged me, and and I think about Jesus and those disciples. I think about Jesus and his dad in the carpentry shop. You know, some dads and sons shouldn't work together. But there are some that it's okay. But there's that camaraderie. There's that, hey, we're working here together. And there are times that we keep our heads down and we're real serious. And there are other times we just enjoy being with each other. Man, isn't this fun? And Gene was that way. When I go and work with Gene, man, he was, you know, he didn't mind telling you if you were doing something wrong or being a little lazy. I was never lazy, but that's the kind of relationship. We're in a working relationship with Jesus Christ. We get to go to work with him every day. There's been the last few weeks, 2 weeks ago, please don't come see my office yet, but when it's finished, next year I will have you come and see it. I got some new office furniture given to me. And so I took my old office furniture, I put it on Craigslist. A nice couple came and they got it. Her name is Zoe and his name was Luca. He's a drummer and he just moved to town. They're from Italy. He doesn't speak very much English, and but great family. And I invited them to church, and they may show up, and when they show up, you'll know. And then yesterday, I was getting my hair cut. It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing, and I went in, and the girl, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm on my way to Walmart to get toilet paper and paper towel for the church. What church do you go to? Well, I go to Gateway. I actually pastor Gateway Christian Center in Goodlettsville. Oh, really? Where do you go to church? Well, I've been going to this church, but I'm thinking about going to this other church. And and it was something about dance. And I said, oh, well, do you know Haley Stapleton? She goes, No, but my last name is Stapleton, and I don't know anybody who's in town named Stapleton. I said, oh man, we got like a dozen of them. So she may come. She may come to church. Look, folks, that's going to work with Jesus. Just talking about him. Just, in most conversations that I have with anybody, I'm going to talk about my wife, my kids, and my church. My relationship with the Lord. Just do that. Number one, it's really good. It's really good because immediately you establish, I have a wife, I have kids, I have a relationship with God. When Joseph was encouraged to cheat on Potiphar's wife, he did it in the opposite direction, though. He said, I have a God, and I have your husband, and I have a family. And that was just a little, if ever you need that in a tempting moment, just throw that out. It really shuts a lot of things down when you lead with, let me tell you about my beautiful wife and my wonderful kids and my relationship with the Lord. Verses 19 and 20. He was pleased to have all fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Matthew 11:19 says, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. And then it goes on to say, Jesus is a friend of sinners, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Now this is what the world said about Jesus as they were watching. Man, you act like you're friends with those people. And he proudly said, I am friends with those people. I'm also the redeemer of those people. I'm also the physician for those people. I'm the lover of those people. That's who those people are to me. When you say those people, be careful, because you're talking about my people. Another story that reminds me. Just one of those times where I was feeling my wild oats as a young man. And I said something to my dad about my mom, only I referred to her as that woman. That woman, and my dad stopped me and he goes, that woman is my wife. So years later, when my younger brother was saying, I think I'm going to tell Dad about this and about Mom, and I said, if memory serves me, he doesn't see her as your mother, he sees her as his wife. That's how Jesus sees us. We're not just some people. We are his bride. Now guys, I know that's hard to wrap our minds around, but just go with it. We're his bride. You know how you take care of your bride? That's how he takes care of you. How you defend your bride? That's how he defends you. How you provide for your bride? That's how he provides for you. That's what he thinks of you. He's also our brother. In Proverbs 18:24, it says this. A man of too many friends comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And it's talking about Jesus. Even David was talking about Jesus, this guy who sticks closer than a brother. And trust me, he had a pretty good friend in Jonathan. He had a friend who was closer than a brother. But he's not talking about Jonathan there. He's talking about Jesus, Yeshua. That's who he's talking about. And then Jesus, he is the lover of our soul. This week, last week we talked about God. This week we're talking about Jesus. This week, let that really be real to you in every situation, in every circumstance. And every time you get frustrated, every time you get depressed, every time you get lonely, every time you get anxious, remember who Jesus is and who you are to Jesus. You are not some hand-me-down. You are not some leftover. You are not some maybe. You are his prized possession. When you start dealing this week with feelings of just insecurity or feelings of worthlessness or whatever, I want you to stop and I want you to think about that thing you value most. What would you do for that thing that you value most? What would you do to keep